receiving your weekly Quranic wisdom study. A lot has happened this week. We are very sad about what happened to welcome everyone to George Floyd, and may Allah help all our brothers and sisters who are oppressed, especially our Black brothers and sisters who have suffered a lot of injustices, and may the most just one give them and all the oppressed in the world justice and peace and reward in this world and the next. And may we be all among those who support justice, and may Allah protect us, all of us, from supporting injustice in any way. So with that, inshallah, we'll turn to Dr. Yamina. We've been studying 11th word, as you know, and we've been talking about how human beings reflect beautiful names of God and what is the true calling of our lives. So the text is before us, and we will continue to unpack together with Dr. Yamina, and you're most welcome to join in with your comments and questions. So, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina, Bismillah. We are not hearing you.
Sorry, I was muted and I didn't realize it. Okay. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So we're carrying on with the 11th word, which was reflections of Imam Nursi rahimahullah on the 10th ayat of Surah Al-Shams. And we came to the end. He's talking about after the choice that we have, there are two groups of people, meaning two attitudes that we can take in the world. And now we've been through a series of steps to fulfill the purpose of our life, which is to know God and worship Him. And part of the worship is to love Him and seek help from Him alone, because anything and everything that we long for and that our heart is created to long for and to love is with Him alone and from Him alone. And so we are at the end of where he's telling us again and again what the nature of human life is, what it is created for, how it functions, how it works. And the more we are aware of this reality, the more it becomes easier to align with that purpose, to choose to align with that purpose. Of course, all these are taken from different parts of the Quran. So here we were last week we stopped as where we were told, now the form of your life and the manner of its duty is this: your life is an inscribed word, so it's a written word, and wisdom displaying word written by the pen of power. The pen of power is the pen of divine power. It means written here is in a sense it's a metaphor, but it's in a metaphor that is inspired by the language of the Quran, like saying that everything is kalimatullah. all the creation represents, in a sense, the words of God. And since the very act of creation is described as the result of the command, be and it is, kun fayakun. So God says, be. So it's a spoken word that becomes a being. And so he's saying, your life is also a word written and willed by the pen of divine power. It is seen and heard because it is a written and an audible, let's say, word, be. And it points to the divine names. Once that be becomes manifest in the world as being, then it is an embodiment of various combinations of the manifestations and reflections of the beautiful names of God. Of course, the fact that it is audible is also, we tend to associate the written word with something static. It doesn't change, it's there and that's it, finished. But the fact that it is audible, it means it's speech. Speech is an ongoing event or a process. And so we don't tend to limit it. And so we can also appreciate that it is something that is constantly changing, transforming, and therefore being willed. And therefore it is the result of a writing, of a speaking, of a sustaining, of a maintaining, and it doesn't exist on its own. And so he says, the form of your life consists of matters like this. Now, the true meaning of your life is this. It's acting as a mirror to the manifestation of divine oneness and the manifestation of the eternally besought one. And so here the divine oneness is, I guess it must be ahadiyya. And so ahad and samad. That is to say, through a comprehensiveness, as though being the point of focus of for all the divine names manifested in the world, it is being a mirror to the single and eternally besought one. It is, your life is like a mirror to these two names. And so in a way, it is as though all the divine names are manifested. It's like a focus that attracts the manifestation, the reflection of all the divine names manifested in the world. And so it is being a mirror to the single and eternally besought one. So the word ahad is translated in different ways because it's a translation. You have to, it's always open to interpretation. So last week there was the question of why particularly Ahad and Samad. And Ahad and Samad, these two names, first in the Quran, we associate them with Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah, I think it's 112. And Surah Al-Ikhlas is the gist of Tawheed. It articulates Tawheed. There's God and nothing else. Ikhlas means sincerity, but it also means purity. When you say khalis, it means pure, 100%. So these two names actually are repeated in the work of Imam Nursi quite often, and they have a particular, very essential meaning. And that's because he talks about the way he defines or he sees ahadiyya, means looking to God's being ahad. So ahad is one single, unique, and its relationship to wahidiyya, God being, so wahdaniya, or like when we have tawheed, God being one. He says oneness is when you realize that the whole creation, not only in space, but also in time, from the very beginning, from the past to the future, and everything here and now, everywhere, to attest and testify that all of them are the creation of one and only one being that we call God. So he said this is not easy to encompass, this reality. Forget about time, because we can't encompass time, but even in space here and now, we can't encompass it. So he says for the intellect to encompass such a reality, it's very difficult. So how can we witness to this reality and make shahada? So he said this is related to what he calls ahadiyya, God being ahad. And so he says everything, all beings, all things, all events have been created in such a unique way that it is as though each one of them has a stamp of his being ahad, stamp of ahadiyya. So if we learn how to learn that he is ahad, but this ahadiyya does not require us to encompass the whole creation, but to look at a single being, event, creature, once at a time. And he explains this. I'm not going to. So how do we come from considering one single being to the conclusion that God creates everything, he has power over everything? So he says, because we don't have that ability to comprehend and encompass everything at once, everything is created in a way that it has this stamp. And so this stamp of ahadiyya is that first, everything, every single thing exists in interconnection with everything else in different ways. So if you look at one fly, I just said fly because it's an example given in the Quran. The fly needs air, needs food, needs the whole universe, needs light, needs like any living being. So in order for it to exist, all that needs to be there first. Second, the fly, so whoever makes the fly cannot be, since the fly doesn't exist on its own separately of its context, of the universe, of the rest of the world, whoever is making the fly right now, a living fly right now, can only be the one who has control over everything else that contributes and is part of the existence of the fly. Second step is all the flies. If I have this reasoning for one fly, I don't have to repeat it for a second fly. It applies to all the species, and then it applies to all fly-like things, then to all birds, then to all living beings, then you can add plants and human beings and other animals and everything. And then that single fly becomes a witness that speaks and gives testimony that its maker is the maker of the whole universe and it's the maker of all other beings. And so through reflecting on the existence of one single being, we understand through the way it is created that its maker is the maker of everything else. And then so we can come to the end and witness and make the shahada and testify that there is no maker and no giver of life and no one who has control over everything, etc., etc., and all the names of God, no one who has knowledge and power, and except one, and that one we call him God. So there is only one. And so this is the way, there is only one way to come to wahidiyah, to giving everything to God, and with yaqeen, with certainty. There is only one way. You have to go through ahad, because everything is unique. And you can take the example of human beings, the human features. All human beings, the face of, they all look like each other, but each one is unique. So, of course, I only mentioned one level of the reasoning. Other levels is, he says you can't say that it is a blind force, a blind law making them, because each one is unique. The human face, it's not like a chain production. Each one is different, so it shows also purpose and will, and he goes on with different names of God. So this ahadiyya to wahadiyya is very central to reading the signs in the world, in the universe, in the creation.
Dr. Yamina,
Yes.
you mentioned the fly, and so I would like to remind our audience that Receiving Noor has a video called the Miracle of the Fly and how it glorifies its maker. So it's in our Receiving Noor channel. The title is The Miracle of the Fly. I'm going to put it in the chat for you to, keep it to look at it later. Since you mentioned the fly. So what, and then what, to add one thing, can we say that ahad, God being the ahad, is reflected, God's oneness reflected in every single thing? You said it's not the factory production, everything is directly made by one God, and that's the idea of ahad. Every single thing, not the first life or general species, and then the fly is just happen. Yeah, every single thing is created by one, and that's ahadiyya, the emphasis in ahadiyya. And then in wahidiyya, the whole thing is made by one.
I can share actually an example. He has many examples, but one of them, like, I'm going to a little bit paraphrase as well. So he gives the example of how every being, every particle, everything, every particle is, he calls it a window onto the light of unity, of divine unity, and the necessary. Not only it's a window onto the light of unity, it means unity, divine unity becomes clear through that window. We have no doubt anymore, we have that certainty. But it's also, we become sure that there is, the existence of God is necessary, because we can't say it's laws are making it, or things are just happening, or things like that, because there is purpose and meaning and all kinds of different attributes also that are being reflected in that. So he gives, I think it's, let me check, it's the 22nd world word, the example I'm talking about, because there are many examples. In the 22nd word, the fourth, I think it's the fourth flash or something like that. And then there are windows, and in the third window, he says, take a pot and you put soil in it, and then you put seeds from different plants, all in the pot. And he says, consider the seeds, what are they? They are all made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen. So they are all made of simple elements, matter. Even those, if you go deep down, they are all made eventually of the same matter. The difference, he says, is that they have, they are different by virtue of program. Each one has a different program deposited in them, written by the pen of Qadr, the pen of divine determining, measuring, and power. Qadr has two connotations, power and measure. So that's what makes them different. Otherwise, it's like someone goes into a bakery and he says, oh, they are all flour and sugar and like few ingredients and eggs and milk. Yes, but they are different because the cook followed different recipes. So you can't say they are the same thing. And you can't also say that each one is, the difference between them shows a purpose and the will of someone who willed them to be different. And he said, we know when we put the seeds in the soil, we know that each seed will grow differently. We won't have the same thing. And lo and behold, each seed, what comes, the shoot, is going to come up just like the project, the ancestors of that seed. Subhanallah. How did the seed know? So he goes on in details and he says either, so he goes into details about the plant, the different species, each one has a different form, different color, different, the leaves and everything have different textures, different shapes, different characteristics. Some of them are poisonous, some of them are medicinal and beneficial. Some of them have flowers and some have fruits and some grow into trees and some stay as shrubs. And so he says something miraculous is going there. Either they are the work and the result of someone who knows what's going on, who knows which seeds has which program and knows the past of each seed and has the power, has the knowledge and the power to recreate that thing in the image of the mother plant, but also has the power to give life, the power to control the light, the soil, the minerals in the soil, all kinds of things are going on. He has the power to, the knowledge, the power, the wisdom, and so many things going on.
Dr. Yamina, we have text that you referred to here on the screen.
It's the third window. You can go, because I already paraphrased the beginning of the third window. Go to page 305.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
Next page, you mean? Okay.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. Because I'm paraphrasing, but I can read since you are. And so he says, either they are all the one who is giving existence to all these things in such harmony, such order, in such interconnections, as though seeing and hearing everything, meeting the needs of everything. Or then, if we don't accept this, then we would have to need to attribute all of these qualities, all of these attributes, we will have to ascribe them to each of those, the seeds and the shoots, and then when they grow, each leaf, each fruit, each part of what's going on. And each one of them will have the power, each plant will have the power to subdue the sunlight and the air and all the laws and everything, and the season and everything to its need. So either there is one maker, one creator, one sustainer who has all these attributes, one God, or each one is a God. But he goes into, I don't know if it was here or somewhere else, in many different places, he will go into the contradiction. If each one is a God, then who is controlling who? Which doesn't make sense. But here, let me see, page 1. So here, look at the paragraph when it starts. It says, that is to say, if the connection, page, yeah, there. That is to say, if the connection with Almighty God is severed, is disconnected, it becomes necessary to accept gods to the number of particles of earth, soil, and this is an impossible superstition compounded 1,000 times over. However, when they are officials, when they are servants, when acting, officials means they are acting at the command of God, it becomes extremely easy, such as in his king's name, in God's name, Bismillah, and through his power, a common soldier of a mighty king can make a whole country migrate. If a soldier or if an official comes and makes a whole neighborhood do something, clearly it's not because of his own physical power, but because of the power of his position, or the power of his whoever he is representing. And so he is saying, they have no knowledge, nothing, they're blind, but they act so as though they were consciously seeing, hearing, knowing everything, these plants, for instance, or all other beings. Then clearly they are officials acting in the name of God and at the command of the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity. A fly did away with Nimrod, the example given in the Quran, and an ant destroyed Pharaoh's palace, razing it to the ground, and a fig seed bears the load of a fig tree. This fig seed is tiny, 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 and a fig tree can grow very, very big. It can be like huge, like 2-3 stories house from a tiny seed. Obviously, I mean, it can't be the seed making the tree that has produces innumerable seeds. Moreover, in all particles, there are 2 further truthful witnesses to the maker's necessary existence and unity. One is that together with that absolute impotence, powerlessness, they all perform most important and various duties. They are totally, look at water, look at soil, look at the seed, they have no power, nothing. And here, Ajz is not only no power, they have no power, no knowledge, no wisdom, no seeing, no hearing, no life, nothing. And they perform very important duties, and these duties are just not one, various, very crucial duties, especially when we regard it in connection to our life. And the other is that despite their lifelessness, they all conform to the universal order and systems. They act flawlessly, subhanAllah, thus displaying a universal consciousness. They are lifeless. Forget about consciousness. They are not even conscious, they are lifeless, yet they act as though they know everything in the world, even what's coming in the future. So they are displaying, reflecting, they are mirrors to universal consciousness. That is to say, through the tongue of its powerlessness, each particle testifies, makes shahada, to the necessary existence of the absolutely powerful one, and through its conforming to the order in the world, each testifies to divine, to his unity, to God's unity. Just as every particle testifies in these two ways to his being the necessary existent one of unity, so too every living beings are two signs, two ayat, that he is the single and eternal besought one. He is Ahad and Samad. And of course, since the ayah, the surah starts, Surah Al-Ikhlas, starts with Qul huwa Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, we are told Qul, so say. I can say, but it's if I'm asked to say God is Ahad, God is Samad, if I just say it, parroting it, that's not truly saying. Saying means you have to know what it means, believe it, witness it. And so he is showing, and you see how it's related to the existence of God, and his unity is always, he links it to God being Ahad and Samad, single and eternally besought one. Yes, on all living beings, there are seal, this stamp I mentioned, of divine oneness and a stamp of eternal besoughtedness, his being Samad. For each displays together in the mirror of his being most of the divine names. Each one displays by virtue of being interconnected in an orderly and harmonious way to everything else, it displays so many names because it's life, it's a fly, for instance. The fact that it is related to the seasons, to the sunlight, to the motions of the sun and the earth is witnessing and reflecting the names of God, such as powerful, mighty, Mudabbir, the one who has control over everything, the orderer, the one who knows and sees and hears, and just through this, and the fly has so many other connections. And if we look at the fly as the way it is created is a miracle, the way it is sustained and maintained in the way it exists in the world in interconnection is a second way that all the names of God are reflected through that that event, that being, that area. It's actually area within area within area. So quite simply, he says, like a point of focus, each being displays the manifestation of the greatest name of ever-living and self-subsistent one, Al-Hayyu Qayyum. I don't know if we need to go further. So thus, it shows a sort of shadow of the oneness of the divine essence. Okay, I'll just read quickly. The divine essence, under the veil of the name of giver of life, it bears a stamp of divine oneness. And since the living being is like a miniature sample of the universe and a fruit through, not only through its being, but through its interconnections, a sample of the universe and a fruit of the tree of creation, it shows a seal of divine eternal besoughtedness. So it shows not only that God is Ahad, but also he's Samad. Samad means everything needs him to be, to exist, and he needs nothing. Because if everything needs him, he's the only one who is beyond this need, because he's the one who meets everything's need. That is to say, this shows that it has a sustainer, a Rabb, whose regards and favor take the place of all things. Everything in existence cannot take the place of his regard. Furthermore, this situation shows that its sustainer is in need of nothing, nor does anything diminish his treasury, and nor is anything at all difficult for his power. This then is a sort of seal of samadaniya, of eternal besottedness. Just like there is a seal of ahadiyya, of his being ahad, single, there is a seal on everything that makes us realize that he is samad. Thus, on every living being are the seals of divine oneness and a stamp of eternal besottedness. Yes, through the tongue of its life, every being, every living being recites, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad. Say, he is God, the one, the eternal, eternally besought. In addition to these two seals, there are several more important windows. Okay, we're not going to go there. So you see about these seals are important. Two things. They are interconnected. So the maker of one is the maker of all. The attributes needed to make one thing have to be the attributes needed to make all. Therefore, all the names, all the beautiful attributes belong only to one, to him. And so ahadiyya is we start with one thing, and that one thing, one living being, one event, one particle makes the shahada, testifies that everything, wahidiyya, that everything is his creation as a result of all the names belong to God only. And so how does one thing here in the 11th word, it's about human life. In this window, it's about everything being, remember at the beginning, he says everything is powerless, is ajiz. So just like everything is lifeless, has no power, no knowledge, no life on it. Even the living beings don't have life from themselves, inherent life. At the same time, there is all these needs. So the fact that everything has this ajiz and faqr, this powerlessness and these needs, this is how we understand they all depend on one Rabb, one maker, one creator, one sustainer, who has all these attributes, that all the names that belong to him. So in this second point, we understand that he is not only he is single, but he is also samad. He is the all besought. Everything seeks him, and he's the besought from everything, and he is beyond any need. And it relates to Surah Al-Ikhlas.
Dr. Yamina, I wanted to say that this needs part is how our needs reflect the name as Samad. That is interesting, especially in light of this week, the intensity of the sad news about injustice, racial injustice. Came to my mind that some people were asking, are you guys safe where you are? Both outside of the US, the question was being asked, and also people in different parts of the town. We had some things going on downtown here too, and the answer was like, I am safe, but physically speaking, and I'm okay, I'm safe, but I could totally see that I need everybody else to be safe, and I need justice for the oppressed, for me to be okay. So it was interesting. I mean, we all say this, but it was kind of one more time. It showed that how even in one single person, I'm sure each of us feel this way. So for us to be fulfilled and our needs met, we need justice, not for just ourselves, but everyone else. Uh, so as Samad, we reflect Samad because of these needs that are put in us, that are interconnected. The only the Rab, yeah.
That Samad comes with Ahad. Ahad is our interconnectedness. Because in ghafla, in mindlessness, it seems like I exist separately of everyone else. But the reality, because if I or when I identify with my physical being, then my physical being seems to be physically distant from others. But actually, even at the physical level, if the more we start reflecting, I realize that where do I stop? For instance, where my body stops, air is there. And this air is part of my being, part of my existence. I need it. So, and light and all kinds of things. And when we start reflecting this way, we will understand that we are not bodies only. Bodies are like our clothes. They are part of us, but they are not who we truly are. Then from the heart and from the soul, we start, the heart, for instance, is what you talked about, realizing that if someone else is being oppressed, I can only feel okay when I forget about it. Because if I keep remembering it, I can't find peace. I can find peace until I surrender to the one who takes care of everything. Otherwise, at the same time, what can I do that's very limited? Of course, limited. Limited in many ways because there are so many people you can't change their misperceptions, their distorted perception of the world, of themselves and of others. If they are if someone is unjust, this person can't be at peace with themselves firstly. So you see the Ahad and the Samad are related. And of course they are related also because we all share the same needs. That's why the more we are in touch with our powerlessness and our needs, the more we empathize with not only human beings, but all other beings. And therefore, compassion, it becomes easy to reflect compassion, to let compassion reflect through us, through our life, through our words, through our acts, through our perception. Because there's no way you can see yourself better or higher than anyone else, because even if you think you have something that is valuable, and you have it more than me, than someone else, that thing is not yours. So you cannot use it as a means to bully others or to look down on others or to because that would be deceiving oneself, because it does not belong to us. Life, nothing belongs to us. Everything is a gift. If you like it, the more you like it, the more you need to be grateful. The more grateful you are, that gratitude, if you're truly sincere, not I'm grateful, but I am not going to share it with anyone, then you are willing to share it, because you know it's not yours, and you start realizing and listening to, like in the Fitrah and in the Quran, we are told, for instance, to give in the name of God, to be kind in the name of God, to smile in the name of God, to speak kindly words. So it's not like, oh, what shall I say now? No, it's not about that. Just be. You have to inside be that. And being that is not, I am kind. No, it's my Rabb is kind. He's kind to me. I will let his kindness flow onto the others. Remember, the form and the purpose of your life is to be a mirror. It is a mirror. Let it be a mirror. I can only block that purpose.
So like I have a I guess like maybe it's not a question. This is Naima, by the way. Just in terms of justice, just I mean I guess like justice, something that I've read that really resonated with me is that justice is getting what you feel like you deserve. But justice justice in the sight of Allah is more mercy based. So then you get actually more than what you deserve. Like you're always getting more than what you deserve. So it's really a way of kind of viewing it. You can limit yourself by thinking about justice in that way of what your right is. And instead, when you shift that way of thinking to justice in the sight of Allah is actually more than you deserve, and it's always more than you deserve. I mean, I guess that can be really liberating if you think about it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Because it's, yeah, wa alaikum salam. Please go ahead.
We spoke about the seals, the stamps of creation, right? The Ahadiyya, Samadiyya. And I also recall reading an article from Dr. Umar titled Mercy, the Stamp of Creation. Now I'm wondering if we can think in terms of the stamps about the other names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So would each name, like each of the name will be like a stamp upon the creation? That's my thought, I guess.
Yeah, the stamp of Ahad and Samad is that all the names can be read in each being.
Okay, so the uniqueness of this particular two, right? Okay.
Otherwise, we wouldn't understand that God is one. Because if any name didn't belong only to him, there would be some other God somewhere. The source of something would not belong to him. He wouldn't be God then. He wouldn't be one then.
But we also can say, like, the beauty is a stamp of creation, right? So things like in some of the name, I guess we can generalize, right? Yeah.
You can say that too. It's just like, why is
for this particular,
especially important? Is because they look through through Ahad and Samad, we realize that all the names belong to him alone. I am emphasizing only two things. One is that each thing, the fact that it is related to everything else, then it's like if you have so a piece of cloth and I just pick one corner, and when I do this, the whole thing comes together. Because they are interconnected, they are like woven. And so if you look at one, you understand that everything is part of a whole, Ahad. And Samad is because through that interconnection, the needs of one and the need are met through the needs of all and vice versa. And that's how all the names are being displayed and reflected, so we can witness them and understand them and experience them. Not only through there, but also because we have also needs and we are interconnected with everything. So that's why these two names are key here. And that's why they're singled out in Surah Al-Ikhlas, which is the surah that says there is one God, nothing else. Surah Al-Ikhlas is, Imam Nursi refers to it in many, many different places, but in one place he says, so قل هو الله قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. 6 phrases, 3 of them define God with what he is and 3 with what he isn't. So he said, when it says the first phrase is قل هو, say he is. And the fact that he says he is left unassociated with anything, it tells us, it is an indication, a sign, an ayah, that it is referring to an absolute being. So it's like la, there is nothing but he. And then the second one is Allahu Ahad. God is the one, the single one there, which means that, he says, there is La ma'buda illa, which means nothing is fit, nothing is fit to be worshipped except him. The third phrase is Allahu Samad, God is the eternally besought one. And he says this is the shell to 2 pearls, and these 2 pearls of Tawheed. The 2 pearls of Tawheed are, the first is the Tawheed of Rububiyyah. There is no sustainer except him, no creator except him. And the second pearl is the affirmation, the Tawheed of Qayyumiyyah, that everything, the divine self-subsistent, nothing can maintain its existence without him. And he says the whole universe in its entirety declares through the tongue of need, because we have needs and they are constantly here and now being taken care of, we understand that he is Al-Qayyum. So he's saying Samad means he is Rabb and he's Qayyum. He not only he is Rabb, he sustains everything, but he's the one who, like, this sustaining doesn't end. It is, from our perspective, it's constant. Why? Because the needs never end. They are being renewed. And the fourth phrase is Lam Yalid, he begets not. And he says this conceals the affirmation of unity, of divine glory. And it rejects every sort of ascribing of partners to God. Lam Yalid means no shirk. It means it refutes disbelief. It refutes that anything that is subject to change or division, anything that reproduces, cannot be God, cannot be creator, cannot be self-subsistence. So here lam is a very categoric, cannot, is not, definitely not, never. And the fifth phrase is وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ, no, sorry, لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ, and neither is he begotten. And it indicates the affirmation of divine unity from pre-eternity to, like, all the time, which means one whose existence is not necessary and pre-eternal cannot be God. If something is not necessary, if I cease to exist in this world, the world carries on very well without me. It means my existence is not necessary. And so not necessary or pre-eternal. This being didn't exist. There was a time I didn't exist. There was a time I won't exist. So something transient cannot be God. So anything that is created in time or born of physical matter or descended from a progenitor cannot be the universe's creator and sustainer and protector. So therefore, causality, the idolatry, naturalism says a cause produces something else, and then they say causes produces life, causes this seed produced this plant. No. This seed didn't exist before, and when the plant the shoot comes up, the seeds die. This seed, therefore, cannot be the creator of this. The creator, the sustainer of the Rab, the maker, the producer of this shoot. Has nothing to do with it. Just because one is coming after the other doesn't mean anything. And he gives actually here, in other places, we're talking about causality, he says, if you were like watching different kinds of food coming from the kitchen, like from a room. The doors opens, different dish comes. Can you then conclude that I believe what I see? I've seen countless different dishes coming from this door, therefore this door or this room is making these things. It doesn't make sense, but that's what the whole reasoning of causality that we take for granted when we are in a state of ghafla. It's not about a particular school or particular philosophy. It's everyone in ghafla thinks that's way. That's why we take it as universal. We don't question it. Yes, there is an order. One is coming after the other, but it doesn't mean that one is making the other. And Israel always likes to give example of like a child, or what was the example you gave, Isra? If a child cries and then the mom responds to their need, and the child will start saying, my crying is making my mother doing this, then you say, okay, the child doesn't understand what's going on. Definitely there is will and there is purpose. The mother is choosing on purpose with her free will to answer the need of the baby. It's not because the baby cried that she has to do it. We think it's because I did this that it has to happen.
I think it's especially more eye-opening these days as we walk around and see everything flourishing. It's really difficult to maintain such a view because it's all from the same soil, same sunshine, and then different.
Oh, you mean in the spring?
Yeah, different kind of flowers, and then the flowers.
They all come, like they disappear. I had like a whole array of bluebells. They all now are dry. There you can see the seeds. And now the roses are all red.
Roses are, yeah.
This is here. It cannot be, how do you say? It doesn't beget and is not begotten.
And then the bugs, different kinds of bugs come up and all kinds, and it's the same. Same air, same sunshine. Why does it become, how come it becomes this particular bug that jumps in this way, and this particular spider. It's clearly, it can't be just things are just jumbling together.
And we did see how this reasoning is also, we find it in the Quran. For instance, I think when we were studying Surah Al-Ra'd, we were told, like, look at different, like, the same water, the same soil, yet you have fruits with different tastes.
And shapes and colors and structures.
And then it's at the end it says, okay, this is what God creates, or it's we give different names of God. But we tend to say, oh, let's look, maybe there is a different mineral in this soil. Yeah, okay, even if you find a different mineral, do you think minerals has eyes, or as we are told in Surah Al-A'raf, do they have hands to, or eyes with which to see? Do they have a brain? Do they understand? What is this mineral? It's a piece of matter. You, as a conscious, intelligent human being, you can't do it. You have difficulty to understand how it's being done, and you think that that is doing. You said it's because of this. Because of this doesn't mean anything. Yeah, you can say, I offered you 2 types of soups, and one of them is a little bit different. Yes, it means I choose to make one different, but it doesn't mean that the ingredient, it's because of the ingredients. Yes, but the ingredients doesn't know anything. I had to choose to put that ingredients, use it in a different way to make a different soup. So when really, we can be very foolish and miss, that's it, we miss in that state, because remember at the beginning, there is the humility and the arrogance, because in ghafla, there is the arrogance of being disconnected from God, as if I exist on my own. No wonder I perceive things as if they are happening on their own. And we come up with explanations that are really
Ridiculous.
very far-fetched.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous, really true.
There is this new bug that I hadn't seen before. It jumps and it flies a little bit as well, and then it will transform into. I looked it up. It's a larva stage, so it's going to transform into a type of flying, something like a butterfly. It's not a butterfly, and a very colorful one. We put a name and move on, metamorphosis or this and that, but this is just incredible. And the theory of evolution, that's why it's ridiculous, because it's saying it's survival. Why on earth this insect would have to even come into being?
Forget about it.
Like why? Like the same soil, there are so many different kinds of insects, and this one is flying, this one is an ant. Like why on earth you would need an ant to evolve from something? Like it just happened randomly, somehow, like mutation. Like how could that be? It's the
human embryo before it's born. It goes through all kinds of evolutions, through phases.
But it's not random. It's all planned from the beginning in the cell.
Exactly. So whoever is, it shows purpose, it shows will. The one who knows, someone who knows what's coming at the end, is in control of the whole process. So, yeah, it is a sign, it is an evidence of purpose, of will, of power, of knowledge, of wisdom, of seeing, of hearing, of knowing, of giving of life. That's why it says this God cannot beget and it cannot be begotten, and there is وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, and there is none like unto him. This is, he says, a comprehensive affirmation of divine unity. This is kalimat tawheed, like saying nothing can be like him. You're negating because now you know him as Ahad Samad, as Huwa Allahu Ahad As-Samad. Allah Ahad Samad. then you know that nothing can be like him. So he has no partner, no peer, neither in his essence, nor in his attribute, nor in his actions. That action, what we witness, is a miracle. In Arabic, the word miracle, miracle is to do with mira, with to see. But the Arabic word is mu'jiza. Well, the Quranic is ayah, it's a sign. But here, because it's a sign to something beyond. But the word for miracle in Arabic is mu'jiza. Mu'jiza is like ajz, powerlessness, and i'jaz, mu'jiza, is something that defies the power of anything. It means nothing has the power, everything is powerless before it. Nothing can make it, can produce it. That's what mu'jiza is. And it is a mu'jiza. Who can make that? Who can sustain a fly? Who can give life to a fly? Even if you give them like a fly or any being, living being, even a flower, a plant. Well, a flower, we may not see the life. Let's say a fly or a bird or something. The bird is living. Right when it dies, everything is intact. The physical entity, the physical body is intact. Okay, don't create in the physical body. Use as physical body, say be alive. You can't. You can't infuse life in an intact body. Who can? Everything, everyone and everything is ajiz, is powerless. That is a mu'jiza, that is a miracle. But we all understand that when we pause and question what we are saying and the implication of what we are claiming. It makes sense that nothing can give life. So how come we very easily attribute life to this and that, to water and to sunlight and to all kinds of things? Because in that mindlessness, in that ghafla, in that being disconnected to who we are, to who we are being sustained in life here and now, there is that fancy, that imagination, that delusion that I am a living being, I have my life, I do whatever I want with it. Oh, just a second. Whose life is this? Where did you get this life? It's not my life. I mean, it's mine only as borrowed, like as opposed to not someone else's, but it's not from me. It's just flowing through me. It's a gift here and now. The moment I realize this reality, accept it, make peace with it, actually rejoice in this good news that, because if it was mine, I would be doomed. I can't do anything about it. And since it is a gift, whoever the Samad who is taking care of my needs, the Qayyum, the one who is the Rabb, the one who sustains me, and the self-subsistence who give me, who sustains me in life, to get to know him becomes like, oh, like a huge blessing. More than the life is the fact that it is related to the source of life. So my life is not as fragile and as meaningless as otherwise it would be. Now it becomes suddenly, it is coming from the source of life and going back and therefore witnessing to the source of life. And that's how our life starts realizing the purpose of our life. And with that realization, otherwise, if we are in the self-delusion of being separate and independent, then No wonder we can come up with all these ridiculous and foolish so-called explanations about life, about world, things that just don't make sense and that are much bigger than what we're talking about. What we're talking about is actually much bigger than we realize. We reduce things to meaninglessness without realizing, because when we disconnect with the source of meaning, everything becomes meaningless. Even when we try to give meaning with transient thing, that can't be true meaning, because that meaning is itself incumbent on something that ultimately is meaningless, since it is passing. And it's not, yeah. So he's saying in the meaning, each of these 6 phrases, there is the result, each one is the result of the other. So he says, قل هو الله أحد الله أحد لأنه صمد لأنه لم يلد لأنه لم يكن لم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. God is, he is one, he's single, he's one, because he is eternally besought, the eternally besought one, and because he has not begotten, he was not begotten, he begot not, and he was not begotten, and nothing looks, none is like him. And you take each one and you explain it with the rest. Each one is explained with the rest 5. So each one is an evidence and the result of all the others. So that's why this, back to the true meaning of your life is acting as a mirror to the manifestation of divine oneness and the manifestation of eternally besought one, Ahad and Samad. That is to say, through a comprehensiveness, as though being the point of focus. That's what it means, Ahad Samad. You become the focus of all the beautiful divine names manifested in the world. And so this applies for every being, but more clearly for human being. And of course, the whole thing is that each one of us is aware of it. This is what's going on, but I only benefit from this reality to the extent that I am aware of it and I witness it and act accordingly. I become, how do you say? Embody that reality. Then the purpose of our life, of my life, of our life is fulfilled, inshallah. Now, as for the perfection of your life, it is to perceive the lights of the pre-eternal sun. The pre-eternal sun here is a metaphor for the divine, for God, which are depicted in the mirror of your life, and to love them. Of course, when you start realizing that you are no more than a mirror-like, that the names of God, you're channeling the names of God, you're reflecting the beautiful names of God, that nothing that is valuable is from us, from ourselves, then says, then the perfection of each human being's life is to, with that awareness, then you love them, because we love those things. Everyone is working hard to achieve all those beautiful states of being or whatever, and to reflect more of those names. But now, instead of working hard to appropriate them to ourselves and to lie and steal and say it's mine, now we are more in a state of surrender in a state of accepting, and instead of looking at who is looking at me, do they like what I've done, what I've achieved? You are busy with, subhanallah, mashallah, what God has willed. The more something you see, something being channeled through you, being reflected through your mirror, the more you are at awe, the more you are in a state of praising and thanking and prostrating and before God and glorifying Him, because we are made to love the beautiful names of God, the beautiful attributes, and they belong only to God. And so the more we love them, the more we love God. And that is the gist, the essence of Ubudiyya, the essence of worshiping God, to know Him and love Him. And so worshiping Him means we acknowledge this reality, and we acknowledge or recognize, and we are in a state of gratitude and appreciation, and we seek help from Him alone. And so we let go of all those, I'm going to do this. And it could be our claims of doing things could be in a way that I am going to be the best, I will know better, I will learn more. Or it could be, I am afraid, I have to control everything, I'm scared, there is injustice, people are bullying me. In both cases, I'm burdening myself. When I am in a state of surrender, is because now I know the reality of those, of whatever is going on is under His control only. And so something good happens, alhamdulillah, this is from something bad according to me, it means I dislike happened, it has a meaning. Pause, wait, you have not, ما خلقت هذا باطلا, you have not created anything in vain without meaning and purpose. So I trust that whatever you create with meaning and purpose and compassion. And in that pausing, in that surrendering, in that trusting, in that tawakkul, things will start unfolding. And mostly in our life, we grow more through those things that we thought were, we disliked. Because in the beginning, it seems like I dislike it. How come you are creating it? And then I say, astaghfirullah. What does it mean? You made me dislike it and you are creating it. There must be a wisdom in this. It's not I dislike it. You make me dislike it. How do I know I like this, I dislike this? Because that's how I'm created. That's how I'm being made to like and dislike. And the more we come from that space of surrender, of knowing who we are, of knowing that we are made to like and dislike, then our experience in this life becomes totally different, inshallah. And it is to display ardor for Him as a conscious being. Can you imagine when you know God this way? Ardor, this like, it is to pass beyond yourself. There is no myself, but I don't like this, but why should I? Just stop it. Like there is a whining child within us, like, I say, okay, you can whine as much as you want. I am going to surrender. Pass beyond yourself with love of Him. It is to establish the reflection of His light in the center of your heart. It is due to this mystery, to this sir, that the Hadith Qudsi was uttered, which is expressed by the following lines, and will raise you to the highest of the high. And it is, the heavens and the earth contain me not, Yet how strange, I am contained in the hearts of believers. And so, my soul, since your life is turned towards such elevated aims, not only these aims, he had mentioned other aims, this was the ninth, and gathers together such priceless treasures. The treasures are all connected to the beautiful names of God. They are eternal, they are the most valuable, meaningful thing we can hope for. They are what makes everything beautiful and meaningful and purposeful in this world. So since your life is turned towards such elevated aims and gathers together such priceless treasures, is it at all worthy of reason and fairness that you should spend this life, this precious life that has such precious eternal aims, valuable aims, you spend it on temporary gratifications of the instinctual soul and fleeting worldly pleasures and waste it, because that would be wasting it. If you do not want to fritter away with life, ponder over the oaths of in this surah of the Quran, which alludes to the above comparison and truths and act accordingly. And it is by the sun, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, and by the sun in its glorious splendor, by the moon as it follows it, وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا, by the day as it shows up the sun's glory, by the night as it conceals it, by the firmament and its wonderful structure, by the earth and its wide expanse, by the soul and the order and proportion given to it, and its enlightenment to its wrong and its right. Truly, he succeeds who purifies it, and he fails who corrupts the soul, or purifies the soul. O God, grants blessings and peace to the sun of the skies of messengership, the moon of the constellation of prophethood, and to his family and companions, the stars of guidance, and grant mercy to us, unto us, and unto all believing men and believing women. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. How about you share, like, we've spent a few weeks reading this reflection on this 10 ayat that this 11th word started with them and ended with them. How do you feel? Anything you want to share, inshallah? Please, so you can, this will be like a ceiling. So next time, inshallah, we'll start next week, bi'idhnillah, inshallah, if we're still in this world, to start another part. Maybe the part on Ya Baqi and Al Baqi, a name of God, the eternal. So now when you are sharing, you're actually, it's like putting a seal on what you've learned. Otherwise, it's easier to forget. And it's a way of, it's a means of barakah, of blessings, inshallah.
Dr. Yamina, I was very interested in what you were saying. Very just wonderful teaching about the, just whining in life, whining, complaining, and suffering, and so on, and at the same time, concurrently surrendering at the same time. I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit.
When we identify with that when we are living, our awareness is still, we are not aware of what's going on. It feels like the world, we're in a dark tunnel, and things are coming our way, happening to us as if almost like haphazardly. That's how it feels, even if we claim something else. So we actually identify with that complaining part of us. But the more we start growing through learning how to reflect and reason with the heart, and reflect in the way we are taught in the Quran, and practice it in our daily life, at least once a day, but twice a day, like in the morning, especially first thing in the morning, last thing in the day, and remember who we are, what's going on, everything is being created on purpose. Even in the beginning, it's going to be like, what's going on really? And it's okay, carrying on. The more you carry on, the more you will find out that during the day, your way of perceiving things will also start changing. We'll start catching ourselves thinking in a way and claiming in another way. It means our consciousness is growing, is expanding together with our Iman. And so the more we live with that consciousness, we'll start catching ourselves complaining and say, okay, you can complain as much as you want. Because I is not that. That's a deluded version of me. It's not truly who I am. Actually, as we grow, we become more mature in Iman, in being Ab, then okay, it won't matter because we won't act on that perception, and eventually it will die away, won't be there anymore, or very rarely, and we will catch it very quickly, and we won't act on it. So the whole thing is on a daily level. We can write it down in the beginning if we forget it, write different passages from the Quran, or even like, I choose to surrender. I choose to surrender to my reality. The reality is as I'm being sustained here and now. And that choice is going to make the whole difference. So the moment I say, I catch myself complaining or something, and I say, Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah, it means I don't identify with this. That was just, okay, a thought that is repeated becomes a belief. A belief, if I truly believe in it, then I start identifying with it and acting on it. Now I said this is an old habit, it's a bad habit, it's an unfounded habit. I catch it, I say, okay, I know it's not correct. Therefore, I choose to surrender to, even in the beginning, sometimes it's maybe difficult to find something to really be grateful. I am complaining about a situation. I cannot find something to be grateful for in that situation. Yes, but I can find something outside that situation. That situation is not all my life. When we are in that state, like from my own experience, it's like being drowning in, actually this is an expression from Imam Nursi, drowning in a glass of water, or even not a glass of water, like in a mouthful of water.
Right.
So like here I have a phone. It's a small object, okay? So in the room, it's here now on the table. It's a small item, but so it's like that event in my life. It's one event in my life, but when I am obsessed with it, I'm only focusing on it, and there is like a part I remember it was like a part of me that is so addicted to complaining that it's almost like I wanted to cling on to it to make it my excuse to complain again, because that's where you feel comfortable, and so it's like taking that small event and putting it in front of your eyes, focusing on it, that you don't see. When I put it like this, I don't see the room, I only see this. And it said like, this is foolish. You say, astaghfirullah. No, you are there, you stay there. When I take that pause, that istighfar, it gives us that perception, that distance. And from that distance, we can renew our allegiance to surrender, our commitment to surrender, to be, or at least to be grateful, find something to appreciate. There are so many things. Forget about the outer world. My hand is working. My eyes is seeing. There's so many things to be grateful. When we stay in that space of being grateful and connected, then we start perceiving the world in a different way. And of course, together with this, there is the reflecting and learning how to reflect and reason in a certain way. Otherwise, there will be no grounding. We will have no anchor, nothing to anchor us, which is still better than complaining.
Right.
But we want also to be anchored in that knowing God through our powerlessness and our neediness.
I guess sometimes we think we can resolve something. The I wants to resolve something on its own and just gets caught up in rafla in that sense. But we never can resolve it. It just keeps going in circles, really.
Because we are still in the I claiming something. That's why.
Right.
That's why all these things can happen simultaneously. That's why we need to increase those times, or in the beginning, at least establish. That's why we say establish the prayer, not pray. أقم الصلاة. So here we also need to establish those times of reflecting, so that in that time, at least, I remember and I become acquainted with the reality as it is. So then when in the rest of the day I draft back, I am pulled back in that old way of being, I have something to pull me back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will have nothing to pull me back. When I say I will do something, I have to do something. Even we think I have to pray, I have to do some and it becomes like a source of anxiety. And then we start catching ourselves. Just a second. If you're in a state of anxiety, something is not quite okay. Just surrender means, yes, accept the creation as it is now. And eventually it won't be just find something that we like and we appreciate and be grateful for, but we will be, if I forget, I say yes to anything that's going on. Whether I understand it or I don't, I know and I trust that there is goodness in anything that's happening now. And it is when we are in that state of surrender and we connect, that we may be open to receiving some guidance, some inspiration to how to act in a situation that may otherwise be like overwhelming.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you so much. That's really good advice. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum again.
Alaikum salam.
So this was my, my first full reading of, let's say, a part of the Risale Nur. So, and I had heard, the Risale Nur is described more like a tafsir. And then, so here we're reading this, and then we go into like metaphors, and I'm just waiting because I'm used, to other, traditional, so more conventional tafsir. So it took, so it was, quite, it's very different, very different work. And then in the meantime, while I was reading this, parallel, I finished the biography of Imam Said Nursi, Rahimahullah. And so I guess I have maybe a little bit more. So there are a few things. The style of the writing is definitely, very unique. And there's so many details that I can, point out. But one of the things is the architecture, the way he's building, the thing. And now, there I have a lot of questions, so the way, like, there's an architecture in the verses, from Surah Shams, how, there are layers, and then there are so many layers as well, in the way in his writing, in everything. I was very struck, and I loved the part where, Imam Said Nursi talked about how we interact, with the 6 layers, right? The 6 layers, the stations, the duties and the stations. So that was part of the writing. Was I found it, very beautiful, and I try to do, because I like to think visually. So part of me wanted to work on actually, visualizing a little bit more about the stations and duties. And I can share with others if, you all want to chip in, and then we can kind of, do like a collaborative work on how we can visualize those stations. So maybe everybody can put some input.
Please, thank you.
And the language is so, it's different. It's more friendly. So because, it's like you're having a conversation with a friend. And so it's not necessarily scholarly, like very scholarly that, you need to go back. The examples are kind of, relatable, with, so it's, yeah. So these are some of the things. It's beautiful. I'm looking forward. I don't know if you want to, enlighten me a little bit more. So how did you describe the Risale Nur? So is it correct to say that it's a tafsir, or there is another way of, just describing in general? So this is, seems like, Imam Said Nursi is, that's, he's inspired from these verses, and then this, meanings are coming, this blessed heart, from out of this thing, out of the verses. But so the inspiration is there, but it's not quite, conventional tafsir. So I don't know if I'm making sense. So that's my thing.
That's true. There are different kinds of tafsirs, and the first work he wrote was more like a conventional tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha and the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. And later it changed, and he started the life of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is a tafsir of the Quran in a way, right? And the Quran was not revealed in the same order as it is now, and it was revealed. As it was revealed, it was also lived. It was always applied to the circumstances. And that's how the companions of the Prophet took the Quran. When they did not go and learn many verses, many ayat at once. They would take few and go and reflect and live them and experience them and come back again. And so in the beginning, he was like many of his first how do you say? His first works are very scholarly, and but later he started, when he was imprisoned and then taken into exile. He was under house arrest most of his life. He started not being a scholar of the Quran, but more a how do you say, someone who builds people, who teaches people how to interact with the Quran, how to use it. And so he started, instead of following the conventional way, he was like, in his life, he went through something and he was inspired by some passages in the Quran. He would share that. And so you will find that even though he has one or few passages from the Quran at the beginning, which indicates that that treatise, that passage would be about his reflection about that. Inside also, he would be making use of lots of other ayahs, because each passage of the Quran, each ayah looks to the others and they all interpret each other and explain each other. So it became a more living way of sharing the Quran, because the aim was not, here's the Quran, I'm going to explain it. The aim was
How to relate, yeah.
To build people, to teach people how to relate to the Quran, how to interact with it, how to benefit from the Quran, how to follow the guidance of the Quran, how to appreciate the guidance of the Quran.
Beauty. Do we know what, is there, I'm probably days, but the time, like for example, let's say, when was this word written? Probably in his lifetime?
Some people will have,
okay.
will know where, when, which, and you can find those kind of stuff. I mean, in the past, when we were, I studied the Risala with many different groups while I was living in Istanbul, in Turkey. And in some of our works, in some of our group works, not with the beginners, it was like we used to ask, when did he write this? What was going on? Why did he write this? And things like that.
I think one of the most interesting things for me with the Risale is that it talks about the passages, the Quran, in a way that I wouldn't otherwise interpret it that way. Like in the surah, it starts talking about the sun and the moon and the way, the day and the night and the structure of the earth. And then it switches to talk about the
suddenly, right? Unrelated.
And then there's something to be purified in the soul and something that's corrupted in the soul. And so it's almost like a kind of a hidden treasure in a way, and then it needs to be unpacked. So one very helpful thing in this word, for instance, it started off with this view that why is the universe created? To display beautiful names of God, and why is human being created is to see and glorify God with these names and reflect them as well. And these are said in a very simple language, but as we were unpacking, these are very, very, very profound ideas that usually the very, very kind of spiritual upper class used to talk about. And I think one of the breakthroughs is to make the Quran accessible in a deeper way to people like us who are commoners, common people. And because otherwise, when you just look at the literal meaning and the linguistic analysis, you get something, but nothing that I said I am. Yeah.
You don't get much, because it's talking about the sun, the moon, the earth, this and that, and then saying you have right and wrong. Okay, people will say moral choice and this. How is it related to?
Told and you know, yeah. So I'm really very grateful grateful for that. One time, one of my students said, of course, it's the first time they're reading the Quran, and then I had given them an interpretation from Imam Nursi, and one student wrote, "This makes more sense to me than the Quran, because when he reads the Quran, he read it kind of very superficially. Oh, there's hell, there's heaven. Oh, this is scary. But then when he read this, the interpretation of the same passage, they were like, oh, this is very profound. And he thought this was more profound for, no, this is, you know, as Imam Nursi always says, this is a drop from the ocean of the Quran. It's just that we have become, we haven't been kind of.
We are alienated. We have been alienated. We are alien, like, and it says that in the Quran, like, you don't. We don't really read the Quran. We just recite, repeat, most of the time.
Our first order was to read, and it was clear, like to read the signs, like subhanallah, like this is the maturation of humanity. The maturation of humanity is to realize that everything is a message, and this status of mature human beings, mature conscious beings that realize that everything is an intentional message is what makes the difference in reading the Quran. If we're reading the Quran like a literature book or a history book, which a lot of times, you know, we read it like that, it's not related to me, then there's no message for me. But if I am...
All the mushriks of Quraysh.
Yeah, we're the bad people, like, you know. But then, like even here, like in this beautiful, like Surah Al-Shams, like if we take, like, you know, first of all, like, you know, the nice thing, like the Quran is putting you in the center of the universe. You're not separate from the universe out there, the sun and its glorious splendor, you know, that, like, it's like, you know, this is how Ibrahim figured out there is a Lord that is in charge of all of this, and the moon that is reflecting it, and then there's a day, like, you know, that shows up the sun glory, and night that conceals it, like, you know. So there's different states, like, you know, different like times, like, you know, where this beautiful sun is like clear for everyone, and then it's concealed. And then, like, you know, then God takes us to where we are, like, you know, we have a sky that's vast and beautiful above us, and we have a wide expanse, you know, and, you know, earth. And then, like, you know, then we're at the center, like all of this is related to us, because, like, just like the sun has a plan and this is how it works, and the day has a plan and this is how it works, and this is when the night comes in, our self, and it's not our soul, it's our self, the nafs, you know, is formed in accordance with what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a way to connect, a way to connect with needs. It's like a needy nafs, a nafs that has needs, but also can be purified. So almost like the shortcomings of our nafs are meant for us, like to have it. So, like, you know, so the human self and how it's formed, like it's like comforting to me, because, like, you know, it's how it's formed. It's formed with its moral failings and with this like vast ability, like this wide expanse earth, this wonderful structure of the sky. We also have this wide expanse, wonderful structure that can make us like be very conscious and very mindful, like, you know, and the failings are part of it. It's not like, you know, the failings is part of the intentional plan, because the failing takes us back to there, the failing to realize, and the torture and the torment of being disconnected takes us to the need to being connected. And then, like, you know, and then thus, like, you know, the opposites, like there's, like, you know, qad aflaha, like, you know, thriving, truly thriving is he who causes this self to grow in purity. It's a continuous act, like it's like the weeds, like I remember the other day I thought, okay, today I'm gonna work on those weeds, and I, you know, after Fajr I went and I kept like bending to get the weeds, and I spent 2 days not being able to stand up straight, and the weeds came back again. It's like, oh my goodness, like, you know, as soon as you're done with weeding, it comes back. It's a continuous thing, like. And then on the opposite of thriving, like if you are working,
unroot them.
what do you say it again?
You have to unroot the weeds.
Yes. Yeah, and if you do it the easy way by taking the top, like you don't, like, you know, every time I dig in, like the roots of those weeds are like, my goodness, like how strong are they? Like they're difficult even to unroot. So if you really work on it, then it will be easier every time, you know. And then truly lost, and I like this one, truly lost, like deseha, like, you know, the one who buries it, like, you know, it's buried because there is, like, you know, it's buried under, like, we're covering the truth. Like the truth is that I'm needy. These needs is my connectedness. I have also this vast expanse, wonderful potential of being mindful. So I can either thrive, but that takes a lot of weeding, and it broke my back just trying to weed once. So, but the more you weed, the more easy it becomes. But then on the other hand, if you just like ignore all of this and you bury this under like that truth, then you're truly lost. And so it's interesting, like God puts us with, like, we're in the middle of heavens and earth. But if you read the Quran the other way, then like it speaks about heaven on earth. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden I'm a bad being, like I'm either bad or good. So like, you know, this bad in me makes me a bad person. So like, you know, so it's like either like you're unlucky, I'm born bad, or I'm born good. Some people are bad and good. But when you see that the shortcomings in me is my way of coming, like, you know, to this state of growing in purity, then I love remembering, like, you know, the phrase, but I'm not sure of the wording, like نعم العبد إنه أواب, like, you know, that, like, you know, that God is praising, like, you know, the abd who keeps returning. It's not like نعم العبد because he is the best. It's not he's the best of my like my ibad, you know, because he is the most doing this. No, it's because he just keeps returning. Like so our like realizing that you know, just returning back is what's needed. If we could just focus on every time I return back, I'm one of those, like, you know, praised ni'am al-abd. So reading it in this way, like, you know, makes my shortcomings something that I'm thankful for. Something, but I'm not thankful and staying with it like, hey, yeah, I'm, you know, alhamdulillah, I'm like, you know, no, it's something that I'm, you know, that I have a lifetime of working on. So then
and the love, you know, the love of God, you know, the Quranic passages that talk about they love God deeply and so on. And I used to be puzzled, like, how do you love God so much? And so there, you know, in this discussion that came out, if this is not from me, the beauty is not from me or the things around me, wherever I see the glimpses of beauty, I need to look at the source it's coming from. And then, you know, we have a kind of bias towards loving ourselves, and it says, look at in the eternal sun that is depicted in the mirror of your life. You love that one, and to the point of, you know, passing beyond yourself. So it gives keys of discovering, you know, the Quranic treasures more, inshallah. Thank you. And are there any other comments? One thing I wanted to say, I know we're almost 2 hours, but I just wanted to mention this week, the, you know, the events of the murder of that Black brother, and the injustices that we remember. When I was reflecting about the name as Samad, could we also say that Samad is to see that my needs can only be met by one who doesn't need anything from anywhere, And to the extent that I realize that I get less dependent on other things to meet my need, that even if our yearning for justice is not met by certain people, we will of course work for justice in the best way we can. But even if people refuse to honor dignity of other people and so on, I got a feeling that I'm not dependent on them to.
Because there is also when we depend on the source of justice, the Rabb, so he's not only the Rabb in this world, but forever in Akhirah. So that also brings much soothing and relief, and because otherwise, if the end was here and this is it, then however much justice people bring, the oppressed have been oppressed. Nothing can make up for it until we know that in this world nothing happens haphazardly, and Allah creates beautiful results from people's injustices and ugly deeds, not in this world and especially in Akhirah, inshallah. That's why we pray. We pray for everyone, and especially the oppressed here and now and in eternal life, inshallah. Otherwise, either you feel despair and hopelessness, or you feel anger, and again from despair, that despair can translate into anger and trying to get power to become the next oppressor. Astaghfirullah. Especially when you see it in this perspective, like Imam Ali radiallahu anhu, he says, I'd rather be 1,000 times oppressed than being once the oppressor. Because when you know the goal and the purpose of life, as we've just learned, and how this world is transient and it's not worth the injustices and the abuse of power and all those things, then it's almost like you start praying for the oppressed and the oppressors, because they are also wasting their own life in very foolish and cruel ways. They're being cruel to others and to themselves. When we have in perspective the eternal life, because what we're talking about, this life is only here and now. What makes us either go into despair or into a mode of anger or something is when we forget that this world is only here and now. And so we cannot trust in the sustainers' wisdom and compassion and purpose. It seems like it's been going on for forever. It's not really changing, or it's not changing fast enough and things like that. And that's, to a certain degree, it's there, but to fulfill a function, to make me seek justice, to make me stand for it, to make me not to, but to keep that in balance and not to go into, in order not to be the oppressed, I'll be the oppressor, because the alternative of being the oppressed is not being the oppressor, but it is to stand up for justice and establish justice, compassion, because without compassion, justice is not going to last. It's so easy to not stay in the Sirat al-Mustaqim because the straight path is so thin, as they said, that it's not easy to keep the balance. So we need a lots of compassion. We need to be anchored in compassion. That's only possible when we are anchored in the purpose of life, which looks to eternal life. And that's possible when we are aware that we are only mirroring the eternal, beautiful names of God here and now.
So Yamina, is it fair to say, like, because like when you feel that you like you're powerless against aggression, there's two reactions. One reaction is despair, like I'm so powerless, like, you know, and you despair, like, and then the other reaction is anger, and the anger is a way like to build up, like, you know, to be able to fight back. So the anger is to help you fight back. So what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that instead of reacting with anger, is to realize that this anger that's coming to me is coming to me to make me respond, not react, but to respond.
It's not I am angry, it's anger is a messenger. Yeah. I read it with the message.
And it comes to me with a promise. Like, I think, like, you know, to realize that this that angers me comes to me with a promise that this injustice will be elevated, that whoever is installing this feeling of total dislike and total disapproval and total disgust of what's happening is promising me, if I work on it, it will be elevated, and I need to work on it. So it's so like, and I need to channel it in a way that makes this like energy of like not wanting this to happen again go beyond being angry, because, like, you know, so to put it into like into a way that, you know, that makes it elevated, even if it's going to take years.
Means anger is the messenger. You get the message, it fulfills its purpose. Its purpose is not to act angrily and, you know, destroy something, but to act wisely
and to bring justice. And there is a
that's wise.
Like if I don't forget, like ما ضاع حق وراءه مطالب, like if like there's this Arabic phrase that says there is no haqq, there's no like whether it's justice or something that is yours that will right that will go that will be lost if there is someone who's claiming it. So this that comes to me is to keep claiming it. I claim my justice. I claim justice for human beings. I claim justice for every human being. I claim it, and I want it to happen. And I think so, instead of like living with anger, I need to live with being the claimer. Like, I need to claim this justice, and it becomes a mission. Like, you know, so the anger that comes to me is telling me that it will be given to me if I claim it. Like, I have to claim it. It won't be given to me if
I stand for it. It means I become a channel to those names.
Well, I have, you know, the way that I'm thinking about this, I think it's like the anger or the hatred, however you want to describe it, it only exists because, you know, the contrasting feeling of knowing the name of Allah as loving, you know, al-Wadud. So I think that the source of the anger is knowing the love that's there. And I kind of feel like, you know, with, you know, us, you know, when it comes to justice, since that's what we're talking about right now, knowing the just knows that you have to be, I guess, mirror the name of justice, you know, like be just. And that does require being, I don't know, like an example and someone who's proactive and trying to stand up for the divine rights of people. And so I think that the anger stems from the love that is, I mean, it's like it comes from the source, right? Like it comes from the source of love, and seeing and being able to see, differentiate, between what's happening and the injustice that's existing there. And that's just how I'm processing it. I don't know if that made sense.
But the moment it fulfills its purpose, if you understand it truly as what it is, as a messenger, and telling you that you are made to dislike injustice, therefore you need to stand for justice, for compassion, for dignity, and channel these beautiful names and let them reflect in your life, then there is no anger in the sense that we understand when we are angry, we react. There's no reaction anymore. There is, we are responding in a wise way, in an anchored way. There is no anger. We are smiling when we are standing and claiming our rights. We don't shout, and when we're shouting things, because we are not present there, we are not grounded, we still are doubting, what if, I'm still feeling I can't get it, they are stronger than me, and getting frustrated. There's no frustration because my purpose is not to get the result. The result is always in Rabbul Alameen's, the sustainers, under his control. My purpose is to stand for what I have been endowed with, to stand for the sense of justice that I was gifted with. It means standing for that name of God, saying, yes, this is what God wills and what he wants, and I commit to letting it channel in my life, which means I won't go and commit the same injustice. And if I do it without realizing, I'll again ask for forgiveness, because I can't guarantee, but being aware of the process is what matters. And once we are aware of the process, we can still be in a state of reactionary anger.
But there will be like a indignation that's appropriate, right? I mean, seeing the victim being suffocated to death, I can't smile at that. Like I am outraged, but then that outrage is not my outrage. My creator doesn't approve of this, and I need to stand up for it in whatever way I can.
So I don't go and stand on someone else or on the oppressors. I can't go and inflict the same thing.
Yeah, nobody is saying that. I mean,
yeah, I'm saying anger has to fulfill its purpose. Because if I feel anger, that anger was not created either. Anger all the time, it's either because I misunderstood something and so that anger is misplaced, or really an injustice happened and that anger is well placed. So if I didn't have anger, if I was not outraged at what happened, then how can I go and claim for my right or the right of the oppressed? How can I stand for them? I would have no sense of, as I think Naima was saying, like the contrast, I wouldn't have a sense of empathizing. Where would that compassion come from if we were not outraged at cruelty?
Mm-hmm. And to dissociate from.
So being aware of this makes the whole difference. Otherwise, that anger we can become like the tool of the anger, and then we can't keep the balance of the justice and the compassion and that we are claiming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. A while ago, I watched a movie about Algeria. So obviously, Yamina can speak better than me. But the movie was about like like the French oppression and the systemized killing and the systemized like tracking of resistance and like and the years and years of like, you know, of this systemized injustice to the Algerians. And then like the best part of the movie, like all through the movie, like I was watching the movie and feeling like feeling overwhelmed, like feeling like, you know, this is too much, like to bear. And then there's like this moment at the end of the movie where the commenter and the commenters are not they're European, so they're not like Algerian, where the commenter says, and then one day out of nowhere, everyone rose up. Everyone rose up. There was no way that the oppressor anymore could silence, because everyone at the same time, no one know how did it start, where it started, but everyone rose up. And that was the end of like, you know, or at least of that chapter. But that build up of like I'm not going to take injustice anymore. This will not happen anymore. This will not happen anymore. When it becomes everyone's, not just a few, like I think when it was just for few people, injustice continued. But when it became everyone's call, injustice stopped. Like they could not stop everyone. So I think that's building up inside us. The more it builds up in everyone's heart, the more it's telling us this will stop. Like we're all come together and make it stop.
I mean, you mean build up enough to take a stand. Because, yeah.
I didn't hear you, Yamina. Can you repeat?
I said building up enough to take a stand, because it is in the fitra, the way we are created, that most people are going to be outraged at oppression, but many of us don't stand up for different reasons. But at least we need to stand up. And there are degrees of standing up. Stand up at least in your daily life, in your interaction with. There are degrees. The more you can do something, the more, if you commit to stand up, then when a window, an opportunity to do something more presents itself, is given to us, then we will hold on to the opportunity. Otherwise, we may not even see it as an opportunity. Yeah, standing up for whatever.
And one thing that is very helpful for me to remember is that, as you said, this isn't just this world, and everything is being seen. So, like under a camera, as it were. So people are taking their stands, and we are going to be, may Allah forgive us, be judged according to what stand we were able to take and we took it or not. So it's all being recorded. Like this whole thing is being recorded. It's part of a larger display. You know, it's when the sorcerers of Pharaoh, when they became believers in Musa alayhi salam and surrendered to God, Pharaoh said, I'm going to crucify you. How could you believe? And they said, whatever you do, it's just this world. And they were brave to not, you know, budge from their surrender to God. And now who is the loser? Pharaoh is the loser, even though it looked like he was able to kill them. He's the loser forever. And these people, it's being seen and heard, and it, you know, it was taken, and you know, and so they became witness to the truth. So inshallah, we can also be, in whatever our circumstances are, be witnesses to justice and other beautiful names of God. And it touched me when we read today that it said, seen and heard, your life points to divine names, seen and heard. So it isn't just people see and people hear each of us as manifesting divine names, but we are seen and heard in the deepest sense, that even if you are killed,
matters more.
And that is the
even the seeing and hearing of people matters because he sees and hears.
yeah, it is a manifestation of his being basir and sami'a, that in a very deepest sense we are heard. Inshallah, may Allah make us among those who stand up for justice and compassion and love, inshallah.
Ameen.
Ameen. Ameen. Anyone else?
I just want to say something, and I'm sorry I moved away from the conversation for a little bit, but in light of what's been happening and all this situation, I just please ask of you, my brothers and my sisters, to just move away from passing a judgment on our Black siblings. Let's not fall into the arrogant trap of speaking for them and telling them how they should protest, how they should feel, how they should react. They've been oppressed for so long, and it is absolutely arrogance. And I'm not saying that any of you have said that, but I just wanted to voice that before we say they shouldn't have acted this way or they shouldn't feel this way, we need to be on solidarity with them and of what they're going through. I just wanted to share that with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Maha. Beautiful to hear your voice.
That was actually Hoda, not Maha.
I meant Hoda. I know who you are, Maha.
but Hoda expressed, Hoda spoke very well, because I share her view on this regard as well. Jazakumullah khair.
Each one of us can only talk about ourselves, what I think I feel or need to, what stand I need to take. No one can speak on behalf of anyone else.
And
the point,
anyone spoke that way, it may have come across that way. That wasn't at all, I think, Yamina. If she knows the news and the details of the news, she probably doesn't know. But to the extent that she knows, I don't think that was the point. The point is to stand up for justice as best as we can and see it in the larger perspective of names of God, inshallah. Inshallah. Okay. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina, and Jazakumullah khair everyone for joining us tonight. And would you like to close with a dua, Yamina?
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين آمين آمين. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Thank you and Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, everyone.
Alaikum salam.
Yamina, see you. And let's keep each other, everyone, in dua. The oppressed are everywhere in the world. They always have been. They're all over And most of them were not even aware of the oppression they are going through. Allah made us not like oppression, so wherever it is, may Allah help the oppressed, wherever they are, whoever they are. في أمان الله.